Hello lovely people, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all well. We are back with a video. Now, normally I do the spiel after this bit, but we're going to do it first. For most shows I see, do two separate videos. One is a nervous guide to the show, which talks about content, sensory warnings, a bit about the theatre, etc. I like to say it's things you need to know about the show. Then we do a review on said show, and that concludes the two videos. Now, before I went to my hollybobs, I hate that word as much as most people do, but sorry, it came out my mouth. I did a review on Macbeth at the Globe Theatre in London, Shakespeare's Globe if you will, and I never did the nervous guide to the show and to its theatre, and I kind of wanted to do that. It was in my head to do, but I ran out of time before I went away and I didn't want to lug my laptop with me, so we're doing it now. Now I'm back looking dishevelled. So if you want to know my nervous guide to the Shakespeare Globe, stick around and we'll get into it in 2 whole seconds. So if you've never seen a nervous guide before, basically, like I said in the introduction, it's a bit of a little things you need to know about the show and about the theatre it's in. Now, when I did my review for Macbeth, because it was closing and has now closed, I talked about the content, sensory things in the video, so we don't need to discuss that today. Instead, we are discussing the theatre as a whole, because when I went to see Macbeth, it was my first time being in the Globe Theatre itself, and when you step into a new theatre, I don't know if this is everybody, but for me, if I don't know where I'm going, what I'm doing, what my name is, that is when I get a bit more nervous about seeing a show and more nervous about being in a new space. So here we are doing a nervous guide for the Globe Theatre in hope that it helps someone, question mark, I don't know. Normally when it comes to me talking about the venue itself, I do talk about the view from my seat, and I do tend to talk about, for some reason, toilets. I don't know why this became my thing, but it has. So we're going to discuss those two things and also a little bit about the theatre itself, in case that helps. So let's do the view from my seat first, because I've just pulled up my ticket. Is it a ticket stub if it's on your phone? I'm not sure. But my ticket QR code. Please bring back like physical tickets. I miss them so much. So for Playing Shakespeare Macbeth, I sat in the middle gallery, AD, row D, seat 12 and 11. Technically these were my seats. Why do I say technically? Because when we were sat in our seats, which were the two on the end of the row at the back of the bay, D is the back row of the bay in the middle gallery, or at least in D. However, when it came like 2 minutes before the show was about to start, the people who were supposed to be next to us appeared, and basically we're talking about that the fact her daughter, because it was a mother and daughter, her daughter wasn't feeling 100%, and she was just a bit worried about getting to a seat and whether she'd have to run off mid-show. So me and my mother, being the polite people we are, asked if they wanted us to take their seats, which were 9 and 10, and they could have 11 and 12. It worked out fine. The view is pretty much the same. Yeah, there was no major difference between 9 and 10 and 10 and 11. 11 and 12 even. And as always, I will try and leave a picture of my view. I think the picture I took of my view was from 12. Normally that is all I talk about with seats, but I feel like for this video especially we need to discuss comfort, because the seats at the Globe are made of wood. They are wooden seats and they have no official back to them. Now, being in D, we did have the back of the bay essentially to lean on, so we had a back of sorts, which was a godsend, because I sit on various really uncomfortable seats for work, and so I have gained back problems through the years, and to have something to kind of rest my back on was a pleasant surprise and a pleasant thing to have. Now, the other thing that the Globe do is that they sell cushions. These cushions are about yay thick, give or take. I did take a picture of one, and if I remember I will also attach that picture during this little bit of spiel. They aren't the best in that they're not like super duper soft, they're not like sitting on one of these. However, they do give a slight cushion to your bum. They are charged at £6 extra. We bought our tickets and our cushion at the same time, so all we had to do was show our QR code, should I say, which literally says show this ticket at a cushion cart to collect your pre-booked cushion. So I think we paid £60 for our seats, and then, or 60 something pounds for our seats, and then the extra I think £6 for the cushion. You can pay on the day, and I'm guessing if your show has a act 1 and act 2, possibly an act 3, it's Shakespeare, you can get them in intervals. I don't know, we were a straight through show, but you were able to purchase it as you arrived into the area, because as you walk into the Globe space, especially as we came from the South Bank walkway, we just saw a queue and joined it. There, as we walked up the stairs into the area before you go into the theatre itself, there were 2 stations selling cushions. So there you go. Whilst we're on cushion sellers, I do have to say that in this theatre space, the front of house that we encountered were absolutely delightful, very helpful, very useful, from the people who are selling and giving out cushions, who are at the front, even down to security coming in. They checked bags, they were very helpful, and there is volunteer, I want to say ushers, but they're not, volunteer supervisors I think they had on their backs, who were pretty much on every bay space, who were there to help you find your seat and also help you locate other things around the theatre. 100% really, really helpful, and very grateful for their being there. If I could give out gold stars to the front of house, especially the volunteer front of house, I would, because they were top notch and very helpful. As I said, we were in the middle gallery, so we did have to climb some stairs. They weren't steep stairs as such, and they weren't tricky to walk up, even when I've got my slightly dodgy knee, which is quite often. There was a handrail the whole time, really easy to climb, and they also, for a quite old theatre, quite spacious, that you could, if you are struggling to get up, people can go around you if they need to. Quickly going back to this seat, because I didn't mention it before, the legroom isn't the best. I am 5'7", 5'8", and for the most part I think my knee was pretty much touching the back of the man in front of me. It wasn't like I was digging into him, there was no discomfort as far as I know from him to me. If anything, I feel like he kind of used me as a backrest a couple of times, which I'm okay with, but it's not the most spacious of theatres, especially when there isn't like a set, this is 11, this is 12. They are just numbers on the bench, and therefore if you are wider like myself, you may slightly encroach on the next person, which at times is unavoidable. But just something to mention. We've talked my seat, we've talked the legroom, we've talked the front of house staff. Signage everywhere was very helpful as you entered the theatre space, and you had the doors to go through to standing and also the doors to go up into the different galleries. There was a little sign saying be aware that this play has blood, guts, gore, etc. And on the website it also had all the content warnings you needed to know, so I was kind of left slightly less nervous going in because I knew that there was going to be some kind of aspect of that. The one downside I always find, and I know I should get better at doing it myself when I do these videos, is that although I'm being told that there is going to be gunfire, there is going to be visible guns, there is going to be things like that, you are always on the edge of your seat waiting for these to happen, and if at times it could be more obvious when they're going to come, I can be more prepared. Like I said, I know I'm terrible at doing it myself, and I kind of just go, in act 1 this happens, in act 2 this happens. I'm going to try and get better as we go along, but yeah, having a little bit of warning, always useful. And like I said, it was on the website, and it also kind of was in a few places, including on the back of the free cast list, just letting you know that there was going to be gunfire and such. And so finally we get on to what we always talk about for some reason in these videos, and that is toilets. Now obviously, unlike being in I was going to say a normal theatre, it is like the world, the UK is one of the UK's like most famous theatres, but it doesn't have a roof. So from memory, there is 2 areas you can go to the toilet. Firstly, if you come out of your seat, or if you go there before you start, if you head towards the shop area, you may talk to a lovely man who's just checking you've got a ticket and you know where you're going, and there is 1 set of toilets. I think, I didn't count, but I'd say there's probably about 10 to 15 toilets in that space. They were relatively clean, they were easy to manoeuvre. The hand drying situation was interesting because they were put right next to the set of taps. So you had the taps there and then the dryers were here. So to dry your hands, you kind of had to weave past people who were also drying their hands, but also weave past people who were trying to get out. It wasn't the best design space, but everything was there that you needed. There was also apparently another set of toilets. If you followed from the initial steps we came in, if you followed to the right past the towers that take you up to the gallery, there was apparently another set of toilets there. We didn't visit those, mainly because we worked out where the other ones were and went there before and after the show. So I can't confirm or deny what they're like or how many there was, but female wise, toilet situation was pretty decent. Overall, as you can tell, my first experience being at the Globe was a pretty good one. I felt very welcome to be there. Everyone who was working front of house that day was a very helpful tool and such. I do think I do have to mention, and I feel like I should have said this in my review, but at the same time it's not to do with the show itself, it's more to do with me as a person, and that is this. When I went to see the show, I saw a matinee, and obviously, unlike being in a traditional theatre where the show starts, the lights go down, you're invested, for me personally, my brain is very much, if I hear something over there, I'm going to be looking at it. And obviously people move around. We were also at a relaxed performance, so people were more frequently moving here, there and everywhere, and so if somebody moved both in our gallery and also in the standing area at the bottom, I was kind of seeing what was happening, but also keeping an eye on what was going on the stage and listening into that. So for me personally, I was slightly distracted, but that might just be me, my attention span. I'm just like, oh, piece of candy, you know? But obviously I feel like I'm stating the obvious here and saying you might be slightly distracted, or you might be aware that you can see everything that's going on and what people are doing everywhere, but it's always an experience, and I feel like if I went to see more things at the Globe, maybe I'd be less distracted. Maybe it's because it was my first experience of being in that space, and maybe it was also me kind of in the back of my brain thinking there's someone down in the standing area, have they got a gun? Firstly, are they part of the show? And have they got a prop gun? Because then I'm aware that there could be a gunshot in a short while or two. 18 minutes pretty much of rambling on, but like I said, I did want to make this video. I just didn't have time previously. I am now back from my holiday. I am hoping to get a little bit of theatre in my Black Countryside came out then, in May. So hopefully there'll be more reviews and Noah's guides in the more conventional sense to come, but there we go. I'm going to stop talking and finish this video and say thank you very much for watching, and I hope if you go to the Shakespeare Globe for the first time, I hope this helps. Fingers crossed it might help one person one day. That is my goal. If it can help one person, that's just made my life. Anyway, I'm going to leave this video here and say thank you very much for watching. So all that's left to say is the usual. Firstly, I love you all lots. Thank you for coming back if you are returning. And finally, so long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen and goodbye. Bye.